guess, excuse me. Is James in over there? Oh, I can't see him. Well, it's 6 o'clock straight up. We'll go ahead and bring our meeting to order. Ms. James, would you call the roll to the council?
Honorable Mayor Pro Tem Linda J. Davis.
Present.
Honorable Alex Heath.
Present.
Honorable Hattie Portis Jones.
Present.
Honorable Pat Palin. Absent.
Absent.
Honorable Ulysses J. Smallwood.
Present.
Honorable James Whitmore.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Okay. You want to go ahead and, I guess, take the first item?
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
I stand before you today to give you an update of the Fulton County proposed municipal election costs and precinct changes. I have given you a letter which I received on January the 11th from Ms. Nadine Williams, but of course it came from Mariska Bodison. It was emailed from her, who is the absentee manager. This letter states that with the conclusion of the 2022 general elections, the Fulton County Department of Registration and Elections has diligently analyzed election and all election types. The 2022 November and December elections are the first general elections to have the new legislative requirements in place to illustrate voter turnouts for advanced voting and election day for future elections. Voter turnouts for all election types from 2020 to 2022 were reviewed. With this data, Fulton County Registration and Elections will continue to streamline processes for efficiency and election cost reductions. In the interim, please note, their municipal election costs increase. The 2019 municipal cost resolution notes that it was to be revised after the 2020 new voting equipment was implemented. The resolution cost per voter was based on the 2017 election budgets. Many factors have increased election costs since the approval of the resolution. Municipal election budgets also fluctuate depending upon municipalities involved, legislative changes, facility, rental rates, vehicle rates, etc. Fulton County has municipal elections that's increased from 2017 at $2 plus per voter to approximately 2023, $9 plus voter. Therefore, to have the county incur costs in conducting municipal elections. Fulton County elections will be requesting approval to have the municipal cost resolution revised. We're asking to revert to the percentage of election cost distribution based on the municipality's numbers of registered voters. Percentage costs will allow the budget to be drafted for the current year to account for any fluctuations in costs. A refund to municipalities of any unexpected funds will be dispersed. The revised resolution will be finalized and presented to the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections January 12th and the Fulton County Board of Commissioners January the 18th for approval. So I'm going to stop right there and let you know that on the 12th, they did have the Board of Elections met. I watched the Board of Elections, and they did approve it. But when it got to the Board of Commissioners, they tabled it because they are asking for their main changes are to go from 12,000 voters. It was 296, which was $35,650.24. They also charged $246 if you had a runoff. It's $2.46. Now they are proposing with 12,044 voters at $9.38, which is $112,972.72. However, they did not indicate any cost if you had a runoff. This is $77,322.48 difference. I did inquire because they were asking us our opinions, and I did inquire as to why we're just getting this, and most cities had done their budgets. And if there was any way that they were considering, well, you could pay part of it in this budget and part of it in the next budget, which I have not received any response back from them. It was at the meeting of the Board of Commissioners on the 18th, which I watched that one, which was, they tabled it. Commissioner Ayrton and Commissioner Ellis were totally, Commissioner Ellis was against it because he said that now you're trying to charge the cities 3 times more than what they had been charged. Commissioner Ayrton was upset because we had received this inter-office memorandum and they had not seen it. So they voted 4 in favor and 1 abstain. So that is their first part of this. So if you have any questions on that, I'd take it before I go into the next portion of their letter.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Ms. Jones.
yes, okay. You said they tabled it, but then you just said they voted, so clarify for me.
They voted 4 in favor to table and 1 to abstain.
Oh, okay. And then any idea when the issue may come back before the commissioners?
No, and I had asked the mayor if it comes back to the next one. I had spoken with Ms. Williams by email, and I told her, since they wanted somebody in today as to what the recommendations were, that I would get back to her. But I will be checking with the clerk to see when they intend to bring this back.
Go ahead, Ms. Davis, and then Mr. Heath.
Okay, yes. This is not a whole lot of notice since we're having an election this year and everything, because what if a city decides to do their own elections? And we may need time to look into that and all that. I'm not saying that's what we're going to do, but that could be an option. I've run into some cities at Georgia Municipal Association this weekend that they are doing their own elections. So I was wondering why the delay, not giving us enough advance notice if we wanted to make a change, or even if we wanted to research their numbers and do some research on our own. So I think that it's unfortunate for us to be getting all of this at this time.
And that was one of the commissioners had a problem with that also. You're just giving it to them, and their answer was, we always do this. Well, no, you always send us the contract where we start doing this, and you give us a budget. But no one was expecting for our budget to be this,
Exactly.
because what was budgeted is what it had been, the $2.96 per voter.
Right. So when the commissioners tabled it, any idea when did they say they tabled it until such and such, or they just tabled it?
They didn't table it to a specific date.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Heath.
My question is, the $9 per voter, is that registered voter or is that the actual voter that voted?
Well, the problem is, it's for your registered voters.
Registered?
And that was one of the things that we were looking at, that we have a lot of registered voters, but those people don't vote. So are you gonna give us back money based on the people that voted, or based on the people that, the number of voters that we have? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered in this.
Okay, thank you.
And then, I'm sorry, anybody else?
Why is it, are you going to talk about our plan or some strategy or?
Well, what's happened, well, and I better let her
That's
get
in
to her
my
whole.
next
get to
portion
her
of-
whole-
Okay.
Okay.
That's it. Okay.
Go ahead.
The next was the municipal election options. Of course, they told us the cities have an option to do their own election. And the city of Milton has elected to do theirs. But I will tell you, the clerk is very, very uncomfortable with that, because they have not ever done this. They put a committee together. Committee went out and did some research and came back that they can do it. So they have like 3,800 voters, and now they're gonna use paper ballots and count by hand. And that is not feasible. Also, Palmetto does their own, but Palmetto has 1 precinct with 3,800 voters. So of course, they're not gonna have 3,800 people to vote. If we decided to do our own, which is, right now would really put us in a bind, we would need people in the office to just deal with absentee ballots. As you know, that's the way a lot of people vote. You have to know, and you have to have those ballots out on time. You have to get them back on time. We don't have the staff here to do that. We would need at least 2 people with absentee ballots. Then you have to rent the equipment, and you need someone that could work the equipment. You also need someone on the phones, and you have to rent the equipment and hire someone that would be able to do it. Paper ballots, counting them by hand, it would take us back take us back many, many years. And with the tone of the election these days, that would be liabilities and much scrutiny that's going on as far as what's going on in the White House and just on the state. So, I mean, it's your pleasure, but we just don't have the staff to run an election. That was their second recommendation, and that also came up. Commissioner Ayrton really had a fit telling people they could do their own election. He felt that you were putting the cities at a disadvantage, telling them to do their own election, even though you could use paper ballots. Who wants to go back to paper ballots? Who wants to count paper ballots? So they are at that point. The next thing is the election.
Because I've watched the meeting too, and one of the things too, just so you know, and I apologize, Mr. Aaron Johnson, on Board of Elections, he actually was the first to actually bring up the issue. He just felt totally just disenchanted that the cities were not given opportunity to, number one, to do this within the budget cycle, so you could actually plan for the unexpected. And so just so we understand too, and not in defense of Fulton County, a lot of this astronomical cost was as a result of the how many recounts they had?
All the recounts.
Recounts, as well as, in this case, also runoff. And so what's happening, in this case, Fairburn would only end up with a recount, but it doesn't matter because the elections that are non-Fairburn, what I mean by like a county election that can go in a runoff, we would still have to endure that cost for a runoff. But what's happening, we were just actually, me and Brenda sat down and went through what it would take in this case if City of Fairburn were to try to consider doing what Milton. The liability is so great. It is scary. And then unfortunately, with the atmosphere that we're in, I literally just told y'all the situation that happened with code enforcement. That's real now. And so my heart goes out to some of these mayors that are going to take it in-house. And again, I'm not trying to assume what this body will do, but some of the liability and some of the negative publicity that you're going to get is going to be almost unbearable. Not to mention, she'll get into this, what it's going to cost you to rent the machines, the rental machines, the poll watchers. For both of you guys will know, there's a firm that Fulton County used, corporate temps, but most of it was a company called Happy Faces, where you may have heard for almost a year, residents mainly in North Fulton was pounding Fulton County about Happy Faces, but what they didn't understand was that the liability that goes on and the amount of money Fulton County distributed as related trying to, in this case, using Happy Faces, we would have to go do all of that. I mean, it'd be on. The other thing too, when you were talking earlier, and I apologize, when you said if we were to go ask Fulton County about, I can't remember what area, and you said they're basically.
I was speaking of the absentee ballots.
Yeah,
They're not going to.
And they was like, go do your own. You decide to do your own election, do your own. And so I just wanted to give you the atmosphere that I'm getting to hear it from both sides. So go ahead, Ms. Davis.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, did we not hear that the legislature's looking at not having runoffs anymore? Are they trying to stop having that due to the cost of it? And not that would probably make any difference, but for them to do a total overhaul, and there are other pending things that's happening that may occur in the legislature, and for them to do that now seems to me to be kind of off base.
Well, and another reason I think it's so high is that they lump us in with Atlanta. And Atlanta has a lot of precincts. They have to have a lot of people. Even when you talk about the trucks, one of the things they say now is that they can't deliver in vans anymore. The equipment has to be in trucks. But there are ways that they could do it. Why do you have to have a truck that goes to Atlanta come here? I mean, you can have one truck that comes to the south side that does us. But all of those numbers, those millions, is lumped in with Atlanta, and also they have a much larger election.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, you still got it.
Yeah, this just popped up. Thanks, Mayor. Is there any way we could find out how long they're going to table this? Because even if they decided when they had the meeting, it just doesn't give us enough time to restructure what we're to do here within the city. And for them to try to do this for this election coming up, to me, is just not the best practice to do.
Well, I mean, I can check, but I would, really, it's brought to you all so that you could speak with your elected officials or speak with Fulton County commissioners. Because, you know, I would be out of place to speak with them, but that's something that I think you all should speak to them about this. Because, like I said, some of them, Commissioner Hall had not even seen the letter. And Commissioner Ayrton was just upset because they had not voted for this to come out. So they have great reservations on this passing.
And I was
They
just-
don't, they really not, you know, in favor of this passing at this point.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, and I guess fortunate for us, now that Commissioner Ayrton is actually the representative of this city, because of the change of maps, it was to our benefit, totally unexpected that he was outraged over this period. And again, that being basically echoed by the Board of Elections, Mr. Aaron Johnson, so. But again, the standard practice when an item is held at Fulton County, if I remember correctly, most of the time, the item will come back. It go 30 days, I'll be surprised if they don't try to come back, because 30 days from last Wednesday is a long time when you normally end up with them. I think, don't we have an election sometime in March this year?
I don't think a city has.
No, I mean, I'm talking about
Not a
Fulton,
city.
but the government, period, Fulton County government has an election, I believe.
But
Sometimes
this
it's
is
normally in the.
strictly for the municipal elections.
Okay, okay. So, I just don't see how they can push this down the road. I'll mention that to Commissioner Ayrton, just so you know, just ask him, say, hey, man, we're not on the citizen in the balance, waiting on you guys to make a decision about this, so. I'm sorry,
So their next, oh, you had a question?
so you had a question, Mr. Whitmore?
Yes, Mayor. I understand it's on hold with Fulton County, all right, but playing devil's advocate,
Yeah.
let's say that it is approved, and we're forced to operate under this new process. With our budgets already being established, we would be in a position to go back to Fulton County and say, listen, our new budget period is not until October the 1st, all right? And even then, we shouldn't be paying the full load of that. Should be some sort of marginal increase or some sort of calculation that they can use where it's not going to impact the budget the way this particular proposal is, because that is really, really.
We're not the only city, there's a couple of cities, I won't say that their number is astronomical, so, trust me.
They're in your printout.
Oh.
At the other cities.
Mayor, as it relates to
Yeah.
Councilman Whitmore, more directly as it relates to increased cost, if we were faced with that prospect, we'd have to look at a couple of different options. One would be a budget amendment. We typically take a conservative approach to doing those for reasons we can talk about at more length, but there are times when they become necessary. The other option would be we could pay a portion of the increased costs out of the existing approved budget, because the election falls over into the next budget, which is in November. It would give us the opportunity to do our budget season when we plan for FY24 to incorporate the increased costs in the next year's budget. So we could look at it, and we consult, of course, with our finance director, Mr. Stevens, to figure out what his recommendation is for the best path, but we would try to develop necessary options if that became a reality.
Thank you. But I also wanted from the standpoint of being selfish, and I probably shouldn't have said that, but from the standpoint of being selfish, I'd like to minimize any cost so we don't have to worry about budget amendments and everything else, because we do pretty well with our budget here in this city.
Yes,
And
sir.
to have something unexpected like this to come up is concerning.
Ms.
One more question.
Johnson again.
The other part of this is the reduction of polling places as well, and the places where they are recommending the polling places to be. there needs to be some discussion in reference to that as it relates to the city.
Well, she's got another part of the presentation
Okay.
that deals with that very thing.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
so you-
sorry. I
No,
thought
so
we
you
were
walked, no,
just-
you walked her right into it, so.
Okay.
Perfect segue.
Next portion is election day costs where they say they can make reductions. And currently, to reduce election costs, election day precincts was less than 2,000 registered voters assigned to a polling location were reviewed and possible mergers were brought up. The merger in Fairburn that they are proposing is to combine New Beginnings Senior Center with the First Baptist Church. New Beginning only had 374 voters, and they only had 130 that voted advance voting and 22 that voted on election day. And this is 0.6 miles apart. So that is one of the recommendations that they are recommending. And we would have 2 voting locations with 2 precincts in both voting locations. And the next one they are recommending for our advanced voting to move it from the senior center to Georgia Military College.
I saw that.
Does anyone have a question about that?
Why Georgia Military? I mean, what's the advantage to that?
I asked,
Yeah, I thought the senior center is a lot more convenient. The parking lot is closer to the building for people to access. Many of our seniors really vote early. Georgia Military College, I think, presents some difficulties.
well, I asked that same question. Why Georgia Military? Had you been up and checked Georgia Military? And the answer was, you all do own that building, don't you? So I think what they're trying to do is find somewhere a building that we own, so therefore, they
You don't
don't
have to pay for
inquire
it?
the costs for electricity and all of this that goes on with the election. However, I will say that at the senior center, they did have a lot of problems this year. They had a lot of problems thinking that the building was small, and they had a lot of plumbing problems. So my question to you tonight is what they want to know from us, and I'm not even sure if we need to give them this answer since it was tabled.
Okay.
They want to know how we feel about changing the voting locations and putting the advanced voting at Georgia Military College. Now, we had discussed, and I discussed with Ms. Chris, that maybe we could do it at the annex, and people could park over in the other, but that's not a real good place either. So we don't, I mean, unless we did it at one of the churches here that we already vote at, and see if we could have the advanced voting at one of the churches that we already have a polling place, that is another option. But because this came up and it was, I needed to bring it to you all, and I have not checked either one of those churches to see if maybe they possibly would be a good place for an advanced voting. Now, I will say that the voting that you will have at Georgia Military can change, even if we pick it to be a voting advanced location. No, not advanced. I'm thinking of the, yes, if we pick it to be an advanced location just for Fairburn, and they have a county-wide election, they can change that location because they have the right to change it if it's a county-wide election, just like they did in the one we had when they moved it from New Beginnings. So this is strictly trying to find a location for the voters during our election in 2023.
Can the problems with New Beginnings be corrected, the plumbing and whatever issues they had?
Well, I mean, I'm sure it can. We went over there during the time and worked on it, but the way she said, don't you all own the building, it made me think they were trying to find somewhere we had or somewhere other than a Fulton County building. Now, maybe that's not the case, but I did ask her why Georgia Military College?
Yeah, but we also got to look at the accessibility to all of our citizens, young, middle-aged, seniors, in reference to voting, so they could get to the polls, won't have any kind of, anxiousness. This is a new place. How do I get there? Do I have to walk up steps? Everybody's very familiar with New Beginnings, and it seems to have worked out pretty well, right, in previous times, New Beginnings? Okay.
But it is a Fulton County building, so.
And as it relates to any efficiencies in the facility, that would be sole responsibility of the county.
Of
to
the county.
Address those.
Yeah, seems like, yeah.
Ms. Jones, you had a question?
Yes, do we know, because it was my understanding that First Baptist was going to be contacted regarding an early voting site. Do we know if that discussion was held?
No, obviously it has not, for them to send this to us about Georgia Military. But, I mean, I would be glad to reach out to them as an early voting site, because that would take care of
Yes.
everything for us, and then we could go there. As I spoke with the mayor, I didn't know if Open Word maybe wanted to do it. But I could check with both of those to see if they would be willing to be an early voting site. And then I would let them know that we have checked with that church, and we would like for that to be our early voting site.
All right, and so I'd ask that you include some of the arguments that have been presented here regarding, well, one, familiarity. Either First Baptist or New Beginning, easily accessible. Both, New Beginnings is the best, but First Baptist is a good second alternative. And third, I guess those are my two arguments. If I have others, I'll let you know. But I agree that us conducting elections, quite frankly, is not an option. There's just too many liabilities, too many vulnerabilities, and we think this cost is expensive. I think it would be even more expensive if we took it on. But by the same token, we shouldn't have to pay this kind of money to Fulton County, to conduct this election. And this cost really is voter suppression, voter disenfranchisement, because now you're asking us to take local taxpayer dollars that we're having to use for municipal services to pay 2 times or 3 times, for a voter election. And given that we are in 21st century technological age, why is the cost so much more than when we were doing it with paper ballots?
Exactly.
Okay, that makes no sense to me. Then thirdly, as a negotiating tool, I think that we should be allowed the budget that we've already worked with in the past, and then let's work together with Fulton County and the elections for 2024, because that's going to be an even more expensive election, because that's a presidential year. So I would ask and advocate for that strategy, and if we need to do something to call the commissioners or speak before them, write a letter, an email, Mayor, look to you for guidance on that, but we as a body has to do something as a body.
And
And also, I think the last time, I think Open Word charged us a lot of money to have the elections there. If I remember correctly, it's like $5,000 more than, yeah. I don't know if that's still the case, because that was maybe about 2 or 3 years ago. And that was pretty expensive, so. But I'm in agreement with Councilwoman Portis-Jones in reference to her statement that this should not take place for this election, and maybe get together and have discussions, research, and something to come up with something else. And maybe 2024, that may be too early, but I'm in agreement with your suggestion.
Mr. Heath?
I like First Baptist, but the thing of it is that Landmark, when it's in session, there's very limited parking, and that's something that we need to think about. Being in November, usually is when these elections are held like that, and so we're talking $112,967.98 is what Fulton County is wanting to charge us. to take care of 12,044 registered voters.
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's a lot of money. Thank you, that's it.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis, the fee to open word should have been in with the election cost. There should not have been a separate cost to the city of city of Fairburn. God, there should not have been a cost to us.
It wasn't a
Should have been
cost.
included.
It wasn't a cost to us, it's what they charged Fulton County.
Okay, it's what they
But
charge for.
Fulton County only paid it once. The other times, Fulton County asked us to have them reduce it, and if they couldn't, then we would either have to pay the difference of what Fulton County was going to pay also. So that's what happened in that situation.
During that period, though, we did not,
Yeah.
we did
But
not.
that was in the past, so, I mean, we can negotiate much better than we did prior.
And can I answer Councilmember Portis Jones 1 minute? I did indeed, with emails back and forth with Ms. Williams, I expressed my concerns as far as what they were charging and, why is it so much when, we don't have to have that many part-time temporary people to run our election. You don't have to pay that much for a truck because you're all coming this way. I said, that these are my concerns. However, it's not my place. It has to be the council, but these are just my opinions as to looking at this. And she went into this thing about, well, it's to provide a service. So that was.
Well, so given that statement, can we prepare statements that says these are from Fairburn City Council and not just from you?
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, that's my point. We all have to get engaged and involved in this issue and get some negotiations of some kind, because that's impacting our budget, it's impacting our residents and our voters. And this is unacceptable, not to mention the process with this late notice of a $7 increase per voter. That's unacceptable.
We can do that.
So, I will get with you.
I wanted to thank Ms. James, our city clerk, for sharing this information, and then talking with her and the mayor. We thought it was appropriate at this time, even though the issue has not been decided, to place it before the body, at least in a work session context, to, one, make sure all of us were aware of what the pending decision is. It is at this point, to some degree, a legislative issue that your colleagues at the county level will have to wrestle with. And so whatever the will of the body is as it relates to how we should best express the will of this elected body to the county and to your counterparts at Fulton County, certainly staff will do whatever we can at the staff level to express that as well. But it is a pending issue at the legislative level at this section, at this juncture.
May I comment, Mayor? I appreciate that, Administrator Phillips, and that's even more reason why our concerns and issues need to be known, and they need to be known now before this issue gets back on the agenda for the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, because they need to hear from us that this is a problem, and our concerns would be then part of their deliberations. In addition to that, me personally, and I'll follow the lead of the mayor, we need to show up at the Board of Commissioners meeting and express those concerns publicly as well. I get the politics, I get all of that, right? But this is a problem, and unless we express these concerns, they will not know that this is a problem for us, okay? I know they've heard from the mayor on that, but they need to know not only does the mayor have issues with this, but this entire body does.
If it's the will of the body, we could certainly prepare a communication expressing the will of the body as it relates to this issue.
Yes.
That could be distributed to anyone who wanted to express that to the Board of Commissioners. A letter that citizens could use, anyone could use, that expresses concern, who's in agreement that this.
I would agree. And so I would ask if you would prepare a draft for our review and to add any additional comments and concerns. And then let us agree that this is the public document we want to go forth. And then we send that to Chairman Pitts and all the members of the Board of Commissioners, as well as to Ms. Nadine, and that we monitor when this item is back on the agenda, and that we have a strategy for attending that meeting. But we don't have to wait until it's back on the agenda to go down and express concerns about this either.
And there's
Okay,
likely
so.
other cities in similar positions that would concur.
Oh, absolutely, and I, like Mayor Pro Tem Davis, this was the hot topic at Georgia Municipal Association this weekend. And cities are talking about all kinds of things about how they can deal with this, including charter changes, right, relative to it. So this is a major, major issue, and we cannot allow our voices not to be heard.
Let me toss something in the mix as well, if I may. It might be that we need to engage some people in the media to get that underway as well.
Understood.
Last thing they want to do is see themselves on the TV looking, you know?
Yes, sir.
Good, go ahead. You finished, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, there's one other thing, and I've been thinking about this for some time, is there on the campus of GMC, that the building that's sitting vacant, isn't it just a
Not ready.
possibility of using that one?
I'm not sure if that building is,
Using it for,
You can't even get water in that building unless it's been changed.
I'm sorry, Councilman, was your question in reference to as an election location?
Yes.
It is not currently completed to the stage where we would make that recommendation. We are looking at the entire GMC campus. In fact, as you know, we're currently underway assessing all city facilities. Our long-range goal is to develop a facility plan going forward. That would include GMC, but in terms of the short term, it is an incomplete facility at this point and would not be staff recommendation that we utilize that for any public events.
I was of the impression, though, that the movie company that was moving in there had gone in and spent the money that we gave them to fix it up.
No, sir.
Fixed it up. So they did not.
That predates my arrival in Fairburn.
Right.
But I've walked the facility a number of times. It is not completed to the point of being usable at this point.
yes, ma'am.
Mayor,
I was gonna
you
say, I
know,
want to
they-
make sure we don't run out of time for the next
I'm
item.
sorry. They have kind of changed a little bit now. They try to stay away from schools, but as you know, a lot of the schools are now closed on election day. So we might be able to find a school that we could use since they're closed. They close every election day, just for the regular election, not for the early voting, but just for the regular election. So I'd like to be able to just check some places and see what we can come up with as far as places we could hold our elections.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go to the next item, just one administrative thing I need to bring up. I'll be real quick. Because Ms. Hattie Portis Jones is now on the board for the National League of Cities, there's a request as it relates to it. I did my due diligence while I was at last Thursday and while I was there this weekend as it relates to the travel requirement for board members. Only the president, vice president, and I guess first and second vice president, where the agency will actually pay for these people to actually attend extra days. And so what I was going to ask this body again, because technically it falls within the city council budget, would there be an objection? Legally, I can't take a vote on this. I wanted to be number one in the form of transparency that request was going to be made. It'll be about $7,000 for this year. If the council has no issue with it, we'll actually address that in the budget, in our regular budget for the following year, for the 2-year term. The reason I want to bring it also to the council is because I don't just assume that nobody else will end up on a board at a major thing, at which time I'm a firm believer that what you can do for one, you do for all. So that's why I wanted to bring that to the council and tell them that that's a consideration we're making, and you can have a conversation with me offline if there's an opposition to it. But I thought I needed to make sure you were apprised of that before that money is actually applied.
Can you clarify that a little bit more for me, Mayor? What are we talking about?
Well, in this case, because we have a member now that's on the National League of Cities Board of
Yeah,
Directors, National League Board, but also we have one in Union City as well, Brian Jones. And so you've got several members in what's happening. In my due diligence, asked for the board members that having been a person that considered being on a U.S. Conference of Mayors board, part of my reason for not doing it was because I didn't want to come to ask the council for extra money for travel. Because the extra days that you have to go to conferences, extra days you have to go, and it equates to about $7,000 a year in this case, for this National League of Cities. I wanted to bring it to council because I didn't just assume that you would agree to that. But in full transparency, I thought it was just the right thing to do.
May I speak?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, yes, thank you. I had made that request, and this is not the first time that this has happened. In the past, we as a body actually passed or gave approval for any council member who were in leadership roles, Georgia Municipal Association, as well as National League of Cities, or other relevant organizations, that we established an additional budget for those who were in leadership roles. And so I am making that request because I have an extra meeting that I would not have attended otherwise. And I have to go in earlier and stay longer for the meetings that I was budgeted for. And Washington is very, very expensive. And so that eats into my budget. Because I'm representing the city on the national level, I'm making the request to support my endeavors in that financially.
And so
So what I really would propose, actually, Mayor, that we do what we did in the past, and that is to establish a budget for all of us, or any of us who are in leadership roles, if there are additional expenses that are incurred because of the leadership role that we support.
Well, and I think what happens, what I like to do in this case, the reason I'm bringing that to council for this year, we can have that discussion this next budget season about that very thing.
Yes.
But I just, in this case too, if it's okay with council for us to go ahead and fund that, because again, it does give the city of Fairburn notoriety like it does with your city. In this case, with both that former president and the mayor and a board member and the council member. So in full transparency, just wanted to bring it to you. So, and
I don't
again,
have a problem with it, Mayor. Yeah.
gotcha. And I'm sorry, so we cut into you, but go ahead. Are the Water Authority people?
Yeah, just a quick introduction to our next item for the work session. As we discussed at the last council meeting, we had the winter weather event that precipitated some serious water struggles. And I referenced then that we would have a more detailed presentation. This evening, Integrated Science, Premier Civil, Integrated Science and Engineering is a premier civil engineering firm that's been around since 1977 in the metro area. Mr. Kerry Dowell is with us this evening. They have been partnered with the city of Fairburn, I believe, since 2017. They provide services to the city around civil engineering, water, wastewater, and water resources. They are engineering experts as it relates to our water system and water authority. Kerry has two brief presentations tonight, one to talk about the Fairburn water system, just to kind of educate all of us on how the system works in general, and then a brief presentation on the water authority. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Kerry Dowell.
Honorable Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, thanks for having me. As Tony said, my name is Kerry Dowell. I work with Integrated Science and Engineering. We are responsible for your water, wastewater, and stormwater efforts here in the city. I've been intimately involved with the city since 2017. So Mr. Phillips asked me to just give a quick presentation on your water system and then on the authority. So if, with your packet, we could start with this. So So you guys have a utility department that's responsible for electricity, water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and trash services. The water department has a staff of 8 dedicated employees. Your budget for water is about $8.6 million. You have over 5,700 customers and a responsibility to maintain 83 miles of water main. All of your drinking water comes, however, from the City of Atlanta Department of Watershed Management. So comes from the City of Atlanta. Atlanta has 165,000 residential, commercial, and wholesale customers, serving 1.2 million people. So this map here is sort of the dark blue area, or the turquoise area that's represented by the City of Atlanta. Those are Atlanta customers. Sort of the faded back represented here by Chattahoochee Hills, Fulton County, Sandy Springs, et cetera. Those are retail customers to the City of Atlanta. And those customers, they pay their water bill to Atlanta. You guys, Union City and College Park, are wholesale customers where you guys maintain, own, operate your water system. You don't make the drinking water, but once it gets here, you're responsible for distributing it through the city, making sure it's safe, making sure you have adequate fire protection, some of those kind of things. Atlanta gets their water from the Chattahoochee River. They have two water treatment plants, the Hemp Hill plant and the Chattahoochee plant. You guys get your water from the Hemp Hill plant. Each one of those facilities combined can treat 85 million gallons of water a day. When leaving the treatment plant, you can imagine it pumps out to pipes all over this whole area, whole metro area. And one of the ways to help with both peak water demands and fire issues is to have an elevated water tank. So you've got all this water sitting up in the air that doesn't require a pump. So if a fire happens, open up a hydrant and that tank starts to drain and gives you fire protection in the city. So you're not depending on a pump. If a pump fails, that's bad. Gravity doesn't fail.
Okay, right.
So if you look on the next slide here, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see where the Hemp Hill plant is, sort of to the north of Atlanta, northwest. And then that tank that I showed in the previous slide is what they call a Stonewall Tail elevated tank. And you can see it's just north of Union City. That is the closest tank to you guys that provides this water service. Yeah, this is terrible.
Hard to see.
Man. So this is your distribution system.
Oh, my goodness.
The green dots that you can, if yours is black and white, it's going to be hard to see, but green dots, each one of those, there's 24 water meters that the City of Atlanta owns and operates. That's where your water comes from. It comes into the city in 24 different locations. So this is kind of a really basic. So you see that, to the left there would be considered Chattahoochee River. The black box would be the Hemp Hill Water Treatment Plant. That elevated tank would be the Stonewall Tail tank in Union City. And then, so once it leaves that tank and comes into Fairburn, that's when it becomes Fairburn's responsibility, which is kind of represented here. As a way to sort of explain what may have happened is this is the only slide I could find, but if you can imagine that green tank is the Stonewall Tail elevated storage tank. And when you open a valve on that green tank to irrigate these crops, and think of the city as just being crops. You know, if you were irrigating one row, you would have plenty of water and pressure from this tank. But as you started trying to irrigate all of these crops, you know, it's gonna try and drain this tank down and you lose, you know, water and water pressure. And we feel like that's kind of what happened with the recent inclement weather, cold weather, was there was a lot of people dripping their faucets. You know, there was a lot of demand, and it wasn't just in Fairburn. We experienced it in College Park and in East Point, and then we have clients that are further out, even outside the metro area. Covington, I talked with them, they had the same problem, and Coweta County had the same problem where their demand, their water demand just shot way up. And so potentially, that's what happened with the city of Atlanta, is all of these communities that they supply water to, they weren't prepared. They got caught, maybe. I mean, they could have had water main breaks, they could have had other things, but whatever the reason, it didn't get to our tank and keep our tank full. And so that's why a lot of you may have experienced low water pressure and or no water. I mean, this was a serious issue. So one of the things that Tony asked us to do is, well, I think Mayor Avery, you established a dialogue with the city of Atlanta pretty quickly. So that's good, and they are communicating with us. In fact, we've got an action session with them at the end of this month, where we're gonna go and just have a dialogue with them and see what happened and what we can do to help prevent it from happening in the future. And so what we're gonna do is you could kind of see that those green dots sort of circled the city. And so what Mr. Phillips had us do when this happened was we would go and take water pressure readings all around the city. And we could see, that the pressure was just way down. I mean, this was happening. This was not imaginary. This was bad. And now that we're kind of back to normal, we're gonna go and get water pressure sort of as a baseline to say, okay, this is where we need to be. And so that in the future, we all knew this cold weather was coming. I think we knew days ahead of time that this was coming, that we communicate with the city of Atlanta and say, okay, city of Atlanta, these are the pressures that we have around the city. We know this is about to happen. Just letting you know that, we're probably gonna experience increased demand. And so maybe you can be prepared for that and increase your pump rate from the water plant at Hemp Hill. So that's just kind of a quick run through of your system. The basic gist of it is Atlanta makes the water, pumps it to us. We distribute it, make sure it's safe, drinkable, et cetera. We looked and looked to try and find leaks. It just didn't happen. In fact, I looked at your water bill from Atlanta, summed up all 24 meters, and then looked at your sewer bill from Fulton County. They're separate. You get water from Atlanta and you send your sewer to Fulton. You would thought if there was a bunch of leaks that it would have been out on the ground and not collected and sent to Fulton County, that there would be a big disparity between the two bills, and there just wasn't. So, you have any questions on that?
I have one question.
Sure.
It's a clarifying question, because always seeking to be able to let the residents know. Did I hear you say, because I didn't know this, so the tank, and if we had a fire emergency, we still would have been able to take care of the fire emergency because the tank, what happened wouldn't have affected if we had a fire emergency?
It would have affected it, yes.
This time.
Yes.
Councilman, but you may recall, this council approved the purchase of a 2,000-gallon water tanker fire truck, so that we always have the ability to at least utilize that apparatus if there's some disruption in water service, or if there's an area where there's not a fire hydrant, and we have a few of those. we have the ability to at least engage fires that way. And that was one of the reasons we proposed to council, and you approved getting that particular piece of apparatus, and that truck can be replenished in the fighting of a fire. So we're not solely reliant, now that's not optimal,
Right.
but in the event of a disruption to that water service, we would have that tanker apparatus available to immediately respond.
What did you say? I heard you say, well, you just open the hydrant and it's not dependent upon pipes or something? You said something about with the fire.
Yeah, so ideally, you would want you can think about water sitting up in the air like that is pressurized. So ideally, you'd want pressurized water going to a hydrant, to a fire truck, to a fire, rather than pumping it like all the way from the water treatment plant in Atlanta.
Okay.
So that sort of eliminates that pumping. To what Mr. Phillips was just saying, in all the places we tested, you could still get water. You just didn't have, you might not necessarily have enough pressure to shoot it through a fire hose. I'm not a fireman, I don't know. But you could get water into a fire truck, and then the truck could then boost the pressure to put out a fire.
Davis, Mr. Heath, and then Mr. Whitman.
Yes, going back to, first and foremost, I really appreciate this. It really describes a little, although I want to study it a little bit more, and I may have some more questions for our city administrator, but it really gives me an understanding of our water process. And I really want to know this process, so I will be able to share this with residents when they ask questions and stuff. So with that, is there any way, Mr. Phillips, we can get a better map of the,
little green.
the dots, the green dots as this, yeah, I would,
That was just formatted for a PowerPoint presentation. We could blow that map up.
okay, yes, because I really would, I would like that
I
map.
can make available to all of you, I'll print copies for all of you. It's a 3-foot by 4-foot map that's very, very clear.
Okay. The other thing I want to also have a better understanding of is, and what probably we did not realize or think about, or I did not think about, is that I had my faucets, in the house, all of them dripping for about 5 days. And if everybody's household was like that, dripping for about 5 days, that's really taking a lot of water, you know what I'm saying, away.
Yes.
You know, because you're like, we didn't have any burst pipes, and what, so what happened with the water? Why, you know, I can also understand the pressure. Now, I didn't lose water. I am closer to Union City. I'm on the north side of the north part of Fairburn. I didn't lose water totally, but my pressure was low. So I just appreciate this diagram and this understanding, and it does make sense as to what happened, and you couldn't just identify a pipe burst or something like that. It's why that was a disconnect, so.
You know, you brought up a good point. So you were on the east side of the city, and the pressure problems were more severe on the west side of the city. So you can imagine all that water's trying to move through the city,
Yeah.
coming from
The
Atlanta.
pressure was low, but I didn't lose water totally, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I did have those, 3 bathrooms, in my house, the kitchen, all of those faucets were dripping slowly as much as I possibly could, but they were dripping for about a whole week, from one Thursday to another Thursday.
And honestly, that's the right thing. That's the right thing.
Oh,
to
yeah,
do.
yeah, we were told to do.
I'd rather pay a couple dollars more for
no.
water than a busted pipe.
I didn't have a problem with paying that as opposed to a burst pipe, but I'm just saying, it drained the water.
Multiply that on a regional basis.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just not just,
The city and all those different colored areas on that map,
yeah,
you've got hundreds of thousands of folks dripping their water.
dripping in water. Okay.
Let me do this, because, and I want to at least get our last 2 council members in, and then we'll have to cut off, and if he has to come back to deal with the second presentation. Mr. Heath, go ahead.
I currently have low pressure in my area where I live, And seemingly, the thing I was thinking about was if we, as a city, put in another tank in our area, that it would increase the water pressure to where maybe we wouldn't have that problem. Do you think that would be would solve a lot of the problem?
As long as you've got water to fill the tank.
Yes.
And so in this case, we didn't really have water to fill the tank if we had one, which is, sort of leads into the second presentation, but I understand if you, I can come back.
Yeah,
to it.
we'll have to bring them back.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mr. Whitmore, you had a I'm sorry, sir, were you finished, Ms. E? See,
Mine is real quick. So really, we don't have a true definition of what happened and why it failed, which prompts the follow-up dialogue and meeting with Atlanta
Yes.
at the end of the month.
Yes.
So once everything has been reviewed and we have more of a definitive answer of what really happened,
Yes.
then will you be coming back or communicating with our city administrator or coming back and advising us accordingly? Because question is, what happened? Why did it fail? And we know we didn't have any ruptured pipes. So there's something else that went on.
So it didn't happen here.
Right.
That's the only thing I can say.
Yeah.
That's, yes.
Right.
Yes, yes.
okay.
And then Mayor, I'll have questions too, but I'll wait until you
Comes
return.
back. Okay. Well, members of council, we're gonna get ready to go straight into our meeting. Please excuse me. At this time, I'll bring our official meeting to order. Give me one second, go to the agenda. Ms. James, would you go ahead and call the, let me just.
Honorable Mayor
officially-
Pro Tem Linda J. Davis,
President,
the Honorable Hattie Portis Jones,
Present.
the Honorable Ulysses J. Smallwood,
Present.
the Honorable Alex Heath,
Present.
the Honorable Pat Palin,
Present.
the Honorable James Whitmore.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. It's Dr. Moses Woodruff.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Come on up, sir. Would everyone please stand?
Good evening to all.
Evening.
Let us pray. Almighty God, to whom no thoughts are hidden and no secrets concealed, we come to you tonight in all humility and divine responsibility to serve. You told us to respect those in authority over us. Give them a spirit of service. Give them a spirit of cooperation. Give them humility so that they will be looked upon as great leaders. O God, in the city with a rich history, a preferred future, and situated to succeed, we seek your wisdom, your inspiration, and that all this Mayor Avery and the City Council will do today and in their actions will prosper the city of Fairburn. Forgive us when we err, empower us when we are weak as only you can, and hold our hands while we run this race. We recognize that we can't do a thing without you. Guide our thoughts, guide our words, and our meditations. Finally, in a world full of violence and malfeasance, truly protect our first responders, those who respond to emergency calls 24 hours a day, many times putting others' interests before theirs. And to all who give their aid to those in our environs, we say thank you, Lord. Lord, we need you. Come by here. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. At this time, there's no presentations or proclamations. I'd like to ask for a motion to adopt the city council agenda. I'd like to add item number 4. I think in this case, I've been advised that we want to officially add the $7,000 to Hattie, I keep saying Mayor Pro Tem, Hattie Portis Jones, to subsidize the travel needed as a result of being a board member for 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or concerns? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Ms. James, do we have any public comment speakers?
No, sir.
Okay, no public comment. At this time, I'll go to item number 1.
Could
Mr.
we
City
do the
Administrator.
minutes, please, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, I always skip that. You have before you the city council meeting from the minutes that commenced on January the 9th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any corrections? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Now we'll go to agenda item.
First item is FY 2022-2023 budget amendment. Recommendation is for mayor and council to approve the ordinance which would amend the FY 2022-2023 budget to support the positions of Building Operations Director, Administrative Assistant, and transfer of funding from downtown development from general fund to Fund 860.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Upon arrival here, one thing that, the first thing we noticed is that our downtown development budget was put in Fund 100, and it has a standalone fund. So it should be in Fund 860. So that is the general fund decreasing by $22,700 and Fund 860 increasing by $22,700.
Okay. Members of council, you have the recommended action before you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments by members of council? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
Second item is a purchase,
You do the building directions,
well, that was all in the motion.
Yeah, they're all in both.
put them all together.
Put them all together.
Thank you.
The next item is the purchase of apparatus-based structure for temporary fire station. For mayor and council to approve the purchase of an apparatus-based structure for temporary fire station on Bohannon Road in amount not to exceed $46,210.07, utilizing the Omnia Partners Governmental Corporation Purchasing Program contract with Hunter Knief Shield Company Incorporated.
You want to go ahead, explain, sir?
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
On behalf of Atlas, thanks for having us again. So this motion, this item on the agenda rather, is the purchase of the apparatus bay for the temporary fire station that Mayor and Council approved last year in September. The modular building has been delivered, but we need an apparatus bay out there to house the fire apparatuses to go along with the actual modular unit itself. So we have a place for the firefighters, now we need a place for the actual apparatuses to go. And this is what this motion is doing, is buying the materials to build that apparatus bay.
Members of council, you have before you the recommended motion and action. Is there a motion?
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments by council?
Yes, Mayor, I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Just for clarification, why is this under property management and not under the fire department?
The fire department fund was used, I believe, to purchase the modular unit, but the apparatus bay was something that we used with the American Rescue Act Fund. So property management was the ones that worked with finance to find the building, the contractor. So we just decided to present it because we had a little bit more knowledge about it. But I've been in coordination with Chief Robertson the entire way, including the details, the length, and the size of the building to make sure that is exactly what he needs.
Yes, I appreciate that, and I would assume that you would have done that. I guess just for accounting purposes and asset management, I'm just trying to understand why it's under property management and not under the fire department as one of, just like we bought the truck or any of the other vehicles. I mean, if it's a funding issue, I get it, you know, so if you can just clarify for me?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the purchase of this bay for the temp station was not budgeted in our FY '23 budget under the fire department. And so, as you know, you all allowed us to put together a plan for the ARPA funding. And so with the funds that we have, that was the best source for us to do that without having to do a budget amendment for the fires, for the purchase of the bay.
Okay, that explains it.
But it's truly funding.
Okay,
But it's
thank
a
you.
joint effort, I can assure you.
Well, yes, but just for asset management and property, it's a fire department issue, I mean, asset, and I'm just was surprised that it was coming from property management versus, but I get it, so thank you. Mhm.
And I would just like to add that, I'll let Mr. Phillips go ahead, but Mr. Dana Smith has been overseeing all of our facilities.
I would also add to that we have gone through an extensive recruitment and interview process and have extended an offer to Mr. Smith to join the Fairburn team, and he will become a Fairburn employee, which he has accepted on Wednesday of this week.
Well,
It took so
well,
long.
thank you. Our question about an additional item for the fire department leads to this announcement, so thank you very much. I appreciate that. And welcome aboard.
Yes, welcome.
Mayor?
Yeah, great decision.
Well, actually, there's a motion on the floor. So did I bring the motion to the floor, Mr. James?
Yes, Councilmember Heath and Councilwoman
Okay, and then
Davis.
Mr. Whitmore, then I'll come to Mr. Heath.
Welcome aboard, sir, as of Wednesday. My question for you is a very simple one. So we're expending finances to purchase the structure to be constructed. Once we build our firehouse, what are we going to do with the structure? Is it going to be reusable or repurposed, or can we sell it to someone else?
So in long conversations with Chief Robertson, he plans to utilize the facilities out there for foreseeable future and beyond. Because once we build Fire Station 23, that does not alleviate the needs for fire coverage in the city. As I've come on board, he's already given me a list of slew of wants that I worked through. But no, we'll be still able to use that because the other part of the utilization of the building out there is for training. So there's some improvements he wants to make to the burn center out there, and there'll be offices for the training chief out there as well. And also the apparatus bay will stay because it'll allow the fire department to be more versatile and mobile to meet the needs of the city.
Thank you.
Mr. Heath, you had a question?
All I would add to that is in our consultation with Chief Robinson, even as we're now in earnest moving forward with the construction of Fire Station 23, working with ISO and looking at the population expansion in the city, he already anticipates the need for Fire Station 24. So it's a great thing that we will be beginning construction on Fire Station 23 this year, but we already know our needs go beyond that, and so this facility will continue to be an asset for us.
And looking at what you have presented, which one of these diagrams is the one that we're looking at utilizing for the city of Fairburn?
So the general diagram that you see on, if you go to page, I guess you call it 5 of your packet that says Tomnet Shield at the top and shows the building type, that dimension of 40 by 66 is the dimensions of the apparatus bay that we're purchasing. And that is, in talks with Chief Robertson to house the apparatus that he wants to house, the engine, and maybe even put one of the ladder trucks in there as well. So that was all scoped out and walked through with him to be able to house those. So that's what we'll be getting.
And is this, with what we are looking at doing here now, can we add on to it?
We can modify it if we so choose. We'll just have to make some site modifications. Chief and I have to discuss that. So, but right now in this phase, we're going to do this, but we can if we want to.
So right now, you're just looking at storage for the fire vehicles. But there's no, I'm assuming there's no upstairs with office space, sleeping arrangements, so on and so forth.
No, because the modular unit that Mayor and Council approved last year provides the sleeping arrangements, the offices, the break room for the firefighters. So they're going to be on site. They're actually going to sit side by side.
Side by side, okay.
Sir.
All right, thank you.
Any other, Mr. Heath, you had a question?
Yeah, he asked a question I was gonna ask.
Is there any other question by members of council?
Yes, just one follow-up question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure if you're presenting the first one or the second one, but are those ARPA dollars as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Second base structure?
There's only one.
Okay, what's the second one?
Oh, the second.
Oh, for the installation charge, yes. Are those ARPA dollars as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
Next item is installation of apparatus base structure for temporary fire station, and it is for Bohannon Road in an amount not to exceed $39,864.
Again, Mayor and Council, this is for the installation of the previous structure we talked about. I know there may be some questions about why we broke those up. That's because we found it to be more cost-effective to seek out two different vendors through the co-op agreement to fulfill the needs of purchasing the building and then installing it. The quotes and the estimates that we got for some other companies to give us a turnkey solution was twice, 3 times as much as this, rivaling the cost of the modular unit. So when we got that information back in, we decided to take an alternate approach and see if we could separate the scope, get a lower cost funding, well, a lower cost project to give us the same result. So that's why this is broken up, and this is just for the installation of what previously would be purchased. So one vendor will supply us the material, this other vendor, Brown and Root, will install it.
Members of council, you have the item that's been read before you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a s-
Second.
Motion's been made and properly second. Any questions or comments by council? Ms. Davis?
Yes, I wanted to just say, Mr. Dana, that one of my questions was going to be in reference to bids
Yes, ma'am.
on this, and you have answered it, so thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other member of council? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That motion carries. Last item, and I'll read it since I wrote it, Ms. James, if you don't mind. You have before you item number 4, to add $7,000 to the travel budget for Councilmember Hattie Portis Jones to fund the housing and travel needs as a National League of City Board member for 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. I was going to ask you, if you don't mind, I'd like to acknowledge our district commissioner that's now coming out. Sir, would you like to, for those members of the public that are watching by Zoom, our district changed, and Commissioner Harrington is now the City of Fairburn's district commissioner. So welcome aboard, sir. Anything you want to give us?
Thank you, Mayor Avery. Thank you, council and staff, everyone. I just wanted to come and introduce myself. My name is Marvin Arrington, Jr. I am Fulton County Commissioner for District 5, and as Mayor Avery stated, the district maps were redrawn as part of the census effort. And so now I am the commissioner for the city of Fairburn. And so I wanted to come and introduce myself. I have my staff member, Jarrell Sherian, with me as well, who will be our community rep for Fairburn. We have 2 community reps. And just wanted to let you know, we just passed our budget, $1.3 billion budget for fiscal year 2023. And we have a couple of events coming up, our annual Black History Film Festival, which will be occurring at various libraries throughout the county. And then in March, we'll do a town hall, homestead exemption town hall, to make sure everyone is up on all of their homestead exemptions. We want everyone to pay their fair share and no more. So thank you. And again, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I did want to also give out my office number and my cell phone number for anyone that needs to reach me. My cell phone is 441-8475. And my office number is 404-613-0202. So thank you again, and we are here for you if you need us, and call on us at any time.
And since you're here, Commissioner, one of the council in our workshop had a dialogue, and I won't go into great detail because it was in our workshop, as relates to the fee schedule that you actually opposed or had a problem with at the last Board of Commissioners meeting regarding the election fee. The council had agreed that we would actually create a letter, and basically in this case, I wanted to give it to you since you're here and let you know that a letter is forthcoming basically at the agreement of this body that basically address concerns related to the election cost, and again, which you actually expressed at the last board.
Yeah, I think, one of the things is that letter apparently came from a staff member, but I don't believe it has been approved either by the Board of Registration and Elections, and it certainly has not been approved by the Board of Commissioners. And neither have we even had an opportunity to discuss it. And so I think it was perhaps a bit premature. Basically, I think it's their proposal as to what staff would like to see. But obviously, we deal with more than just the nuts and bolts and the bean counting, right? And so that, I think, is the difference, or why you got that letter, and why I had some objections to it being sent.
And one last question, sir, is that the council was wondering, and I didn't want to speak on behalf of the county as it relates to the item was held. Do you have any idea? I think not just this city, the other cities are asking the same question. You have any idea whether it's coming to the next board meeting or 30 days from last Wednesday?
In regards to that same item?
Yes, sir.
I anticipate that it'll come back at the next board meeting, but the answer to your question is I do not know.
Okay.
But I anticipate, typically it will roll over, if you will. So I anticipate that it will be at the next meeting, but I can investigate and follow up with you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir, and welcome aboard to the city of Fairburn.
All right, thank you. I feel right at home. Right, Hattie, my classmate Ulysses, Doug High Astros. All right. Good to see you all. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tony Phillips.
Everybody.
Awesome.
Okay, in this case, the city administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope that all of you have had a chance to read the city administrator's report for this month. It brings to a close what we at the staff level view as a very successful 2022. I want to, at the very outset of this brief update, acknowledge our city staff here in Fairburn. We are fortunate to have a really wonderful group of employees who are dedicated and professional, that do an outstanding job every day. They go above and beyond. I talked a little bit about that when we talked about the water event at the last meeting. I see it every day in our staff, both at the management level and more importantly throughout the city, doing more than their job description requires, going above and beyond. We have a lot of room to grow. We still need to get better at everything that we do, but there have been some very positive strides over the last year, particularly with our staff and in establishing some best practices, some policies, some procedures that position us for an outstanding 2023. Some of the events from the month of December was the holiday season. We had an outstanding Christmas tree lighting event. I want to thank again all the staff who pulled that together, Ms. Chapin Payne, Sylvia Abernathy, with a host of other employees. It was a successful tree lighting and fireworks show. For those of you who may not have had a chance to participate, we followed that up with a number of other holiday activities, not the least of which was our Christmas gala for staff and stakeholders, which went exceedingly well at the
Studio.
Thank you, sir. My brain went there. My Studio Cigar Lounge. We want to thank the proprietor there for helping us out with that event. We had a new business, so hopefully many of you have been by it, not only for the opening, but since then at Lady Annie Mae's Ultimate Seafood. They seem to be off to a wonderful start as a new business in our downtown. A great step into the new year for that downtown corridor as well. We helped out families in need with our Angel Tree program during the holidays, where we had employees and partners step up to help families in need. And as always, our police department did an outstanding job with Shop with a Cop annual event. We helped over 25 children to have a Merry Christmas. They got a blue light escort to go toy shopping, which is really exciting for them, and so we were happy with that. Our Parks and Recreation Department conducted a holiday break camp, and we also did our Golden Holiday Brunch for seniors. Not only do we take care of youth at the Youth Center, we do a robust program of programming for our seniors, and so they're always included in their own special way. One important development, we did transition our code enforcement department to planning and zoning. As you may know, it was previously in the police department. The large portion of what is enforced by code enforcement officers is the zoning ordinance. And our requisite subject matter expert on the zoning ordinance is Ms. Denise Brookings, our planning and zoning director, where she also managed code enforcement in her previous position as well. So we are excited about that transition. They still align and work closely with the police department. It's not a fracture, it's a transition. There's always a kind of a symbiotic relationship between police and code enforcement, but this will allow them to really focus on those issues that are really part of the zoning ordinance, and we're excited about that transition. They're off to a great start. We finished the fire asbestos abatement at the old Campbell County Courthouse, which was a significant effort, and working with Mr. Smith and the selected vendor, we had all the debris removal completed, and you heard a lot about the temporary fire station tonight. So that's just a brief overview. There's more extensive details by department in the report which you previously received, and with that, I'll pause and see if there are any questions I can answer.
Does any member of council have any questions about the city manager's report?
I want to make one comment about zoning. I understand why they were moved back to planning and zoning, given what they do. I am hopeful that this is the last time that that department is shifted. Part of the problem we've had with zoning is because they didn't really have a home or felt at home, because they were shifted to various departments with various managers, et cetera. And so I'm glad to know they're back where they belong, and that we do everything to support them and make sure that they feel at home, and that that they don't that they are not nervous about being shifted again. I'm just saying, this was history, okay? And if we don't know history, we're doomed to repeat ourselves. And so that's why I'm bringing this up. So I just want to say I appreciate that, and I know that that's where they belong, but they need to be told, they need to be elevated, whatever they need in order to make sure that they feel at home and that they can have the support that they need so that they can do their job. So I appreciate that.
Well, Councilmember Portis-Jones, I will tell you that code enforcement is in good hands. Ms. Brookins is absolutely amazing in what she has done from the start of the transition prior to their transition to planning and zoning from PD until today. I know she has gone on ride-alongs with each one of the code enforcement officers. We actually added a fourth member to our team about a week or two ago. They just concluded interviews for a code enforcement manager. So hopefully that individual that has been extended an offer will be joining us within the next few weeks. And so I will step aside and give her an opportunity to kind of share with you some of the things that she's done in her just short tenure overseeing that division.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well, I am thrilled to be working with our code enforcement officers. They are a truly gifted group of individuals who are passionate about the city of Fairburn. We do weekly meetings. We've talked about some of the challenges that they face and how we can create some quick, efficient solutions to help both with their kind of in the field work, but also making sure that everything that we do is transparent with the general public, along with looking at some new technology investments so that everybody kind of understands what we're doing, what code enforcement covers. But like everyone was saying earlier, we still work very closely with the police department, both from the perspective of making sure that everything we do makes sure that they're safe, but also I think code enforcement is one of those fields that is a great indicator and can be used for both neighborhood stabilization and revitalization. But that comes with having a conversation with the police department, with planning and zoning, and also working with economic development and kind of making sure that we're all on the same team and talking together. And I think planning and zoning is a natural merger of all of those fields.
And I would also add that it is extremely important, and I know you share this sentiment as well, that they are constantly trained and educated about what it is that they do and can't do, and communicating with the public. Because of their job, they really are the face of the city, and it could, a citizen can have a good experience or a bad experience. But for whatever reason, if there's a violation or whatever, there is a way for us to communicate it so that it's not a bad experience. I ask that is part of the program, that it's ongoing and constant communication with the staff about their communication, and that they are given the education and tools that they need to be best at their job.
Mr. Mayor, if I would.
Go ahead, sir.
Councilman Portis Jones, those are tremendous suggestions, and we certainly will take those under advisement. I will share that this was a significantly deliberative process to make this move, and I can't speak to the history. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Code enforcement is in its home. I do not anticipate it going anywhere in the foreseeable future. It is a harbinger of the health of a city. I spent 7 years managing code enforcement for Fulton County. I know it like the back of my hand. I know how it should work, and I know what impact it should have. And I have full confidence in Ms. Brookins that she's going to not only elevate the department, but create value in our employees. And that's a core principle of our management style. We want every employee in Fairburn to feel valued. Nothing gets done without our staff. And so I'm confident in Ms. Brookins. She works very closely with Ms. Chris, who you know how I feel about her. I am confident you will see positive outcomes, and more importantly, our citizens will see positive outcomes from this transition. We spent a lot of time thinking this through.
Well, thank you. That is my expectation. And what I am asking from you and Ms. Chris is to make sure that they get the resources that they need in order to be successful.
Absolutely. I know the group is scheduled for training as early as February. In addition to that, we have worked with the enterprise agreement that you all approved, and so they have new vehicles in the pipeline that should be delivered within the upcoming weeks. So we're giving them the resources and tools they need.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other member of council got a comment regarding the city administrator's report? Seeing none, I'll go to.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. One last thing I did want to mention. Now that we have onboarded our new finance director, Mr. Stevens, we will resume with your monthly financial reports beginning in February. So you will see those at the second meeting of every month.
Thank you.
Great. At this point, we'll go to our closing remarks. I'll start with Mr. Whitmore.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to say that I have had the opportunity to go and witness the second annual candle lighting at Cook's Funeral Home. As everyone well knows, Cook has been with us for 2 years now. He did this last year, and what he ends up doing is all the families that he has serviced through their bereavement, their grief, he was bringing them back just to help them to remember and recognize their loved ones that were lost. And looking at the the number of people that he has serviced. He is doing a great job for our community, and I just wanted to publicly thank him for what he does. I think he does a great job here in our city, and is one of our newest funeral directors here in the city, and he does a great job. Secondly, I'd like to take this opportunity to look at our city administrator and just say, based on comments that we talked about during a work session in reference to a space to have elections, this would be another reason for us to get that community center out at Duncan Park. It would be large enough, have parking facilities and everything else. And I know this is down the road, but again, this is just another opportunity to just share that the masses can come to one area to vote versus a couple of areas, and with the availability of space and parking. So with that, I conclude, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Hattie Porter-Jones.
First of all, I want to thank my colleagues for supporting me with the financial support as I serve on the National League of Cities board. I just want to say the league is so important to municipalities, and it was because of the National League of Cities that cities our size and even smaller were able to receive the ARPA dollars and all the subsequent fundings from the federal government. We were able to receive them directly versus going to the state and or through the county. It made a huge difference in that. So it's an organization that is truly needed, and this city has been a member for a very long time. So thank you so much for your support. I want to say congratulations to the city of Fairburn, quite frankly, for the success of 2022 that was shepherded by Mayor Avery and his great decision to bring on Mr. Phillips, and Mr. Phillips, your great decision to bring on Ms. Chris, and both of yours decisions to bring on the rest of the staff that were new to the city during 2022. It's hard to believe that it's only been a year because it feels like it's been so much longer. But that just says we did a lot during 2022, and I appreciate it. And the most important thing that I appreciate is the renewed hope, renewed excitement, renewed joy for working for this city. It does make a difference. When you're happy about what you do, it's not work. And so that becomes very important. So thank you all for that. And that concludes my comments, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Heath?
Yeah, I'd just like to say briefly that we couldn't do our job without the employees and staff that we have. And I just want to say at this time, thank you for your long hours and enduring pains of going through, especially with the water supply problem, working extra hours and stuff like that to help the citizens of Fairburn, because that's who we actually serve. And I just want to say thank you ever so much for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Fallon?
I think that we are continuing to head in the correct direction as a result of those excellent people who are taking care of us and doing their jobs as well as they might. And I think that when we conclude this year, okay, it's going to be very noticeable. I think folks not only in this city, but folks all around the area will come to that same conclusion, that this is a really good, interesting place to be, and we'll go forward from there. And I also wanted to comment on my new stylish head Any of you want to go this direction, you take an old turtleneck, cut it off at the neck, put it over put it over the tape, and it works wonderfully well.
Oh, my God, too much information.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Smallwood, go ahead, sir.
All right, I'll just echo everyone else's sentiments. Thanks for you, Mr. Phillips, Mayor, Ms. Chris, all the staff. I mean, we are really situated to succeed. We did a lot in 2022. Before I get into all that, but thank you for serving and representing us well, because I know you're a bulldog up there, and I know anything.
Well, thank you.
But that's a revolutionary, all right? You're a voice for the voiceless, and I know you will represent us well.
Sir.
And anything you learn, you will bring back to the city. We know that.
And you'll talk about it.
Yes. But also, it's a lot happened in 2022. The new businesses, as you alluded to in your city administrator's report, the new fish place. I even stepped in the Tractor Supply store the other day. Very nice store. I stepped in there to get water during the crisis. But we are really growing. But I wanted to publicly thank one business that closed, all right? And I was really sad about this because my mom called me the other day. Rooster King has closed their doors, and people came from all across the metro for that cook-to-order fried chicken, all right? And that was a place that me and my family frequented quite often. Because they really put it down in that plaza over there. So I don't know if somebody can let them know. I am really sad, and I thank them for their service because they were awesome. And that's it for me.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I also echo what my colleagues have said about our staff. We could go on and on and on about our staff, our leadership, our mayor. And it's evident. We don't really have to talk about it a lot. Our citizens see it, they feel it. So in addition to that, I wanted to mention that I attended the Cities United Summit this weekend with Georgia Municipal Association. And it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I was just really kind of exhausted. But the thing I wanted to comment on was one of the classes that I specifically took was in reference to emergency, crisis and emergency, and it was entitled Steering Through the Storm, and it really came up as one of the new classes, and it came up right on time. So I won't go into any details about it here just for the sake of time, but I've already requested a meeting with our city administrator so I can share some of the good things, the best practices, and there's a lot of information, not only in how to deal with the crisis, but recovery, and then how to sustain what we learned and have to go back and look at what we can also improve. And I'm sure, Mr. Phillips, you probably have all this in your office already, but I would have to do my due diligence, in reference to taking the class and just sharing some best practices for our city. I also was excited about the music, what is it called? What was the name of the?
Teen Music Studio.
Yeah, the Teen Music Studio that was revealed over there in the Parks and Recreation. It is awesome. It is awesome. And not only, and it's going to teach our youth the business part of the music, which I think a lot of our stars that we were, or musicians, or songwriters, kind of failed. They liked the stage and the part about acting it out, but the business side, I think, didn't do them very well because they didn't know the business side. So that was exciting for me. Also coming on board, I see Ms. Ragland here. She is just excited about us getting together our youth leadership, and the mayor is in agreement with that and stuff. So I'm very excited about that, and it's up and running at GMA, and it's so many other places that we can look at that we don't have to reinvent the wheel with leadership, youth leadership. And I think that's all I have to say.
Well, and thank you so much, members of council. Again, I just want to say again, we did have, and it's my intent to do a state city address on the second meeting in February, where we'll talk about the successes that we have and also some of the challenges that we have lay ahead in my efforts to just be realistic as relates to, we were blessed to have the year we had in 2022, but we are at the same time, old adage military, my deputy chief of police back there probably understand is you can't expect what you don't inspect. And so as we spent 2022 inspecting almost every arena of this government, and want to just, as a result of that, some of the key personnel that you see have been brought on as was a result of the expertise needed in these specific professions, from planning and zoning director, in this case, to finance director, and we can, in this case, Mr. Dana Smith, who's now actually joining our team. Some of the things that you don't get political points for, but we run it. My intent is for us to run our government like a business. In this case, that means having critical people from your city clerk to your finance director, all the way to your chief of police, and even and let me also say congratulations to our deputy police chief. So again, but we still have some challenges that we have to address in the next year or 2 years at the latest, because at what I do realize, and again, I want to thank the members of council. I don't take this for granted. The class I took this past weekend was talking about future planning, development, from staffing all the way to finances, all the way to economic development. And so one of the things me and several of the mayors that was in the class talked about, the importance of your members of council being heard. And I was proudly to say that from our retreat last year, our agenda is a reflection of what the council, 2/3 of the agenda that was actually approved by council. And so I don't take that for granted. And two mayors even asked me point blank, where did you do that? And I said, there's a lot of prayer. So but we were blessed in this case. Our government is running again at a level. One of the things I'm excited about, again, Ms. Davis mentioned I could go on with all the different, from the Fairburn Festival to all the proper staffing, but two areas of our government that I'm excited about. Again, anything that's dealing with youth, with what we had, what was exposed by the Recreation Department last week, 11 and 12-year-olds actually being taught the business of broadcasting. And so that's just something that gets me excited. And then between that and us, a person that doesn't get a lot of credit publicly, that I'm going to mention in this case, all our staff is important, but this person is kind of behind the scenes that's dealing a lot with our seniors. And I commend our recreation director, but in this case, Mr. Berry deals with our seniors a lot for us. We've got a lot of activities for seniors. And at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, the folk that have paid their dues, have paid their taxes, deserve a quality of life. And so that's what I'm excited about, what we're doing. Want to also, we had a few employees, and I apologize, I can't think of the gentleman's name, lost his in the YouTube.
Tom Banks.
Mr. Tom Banks, want to just give him my condolences. He lost a sibling the other day.
Wife.
I mean, his wife, excuse me. And want to just keep our Fairburn family in prayer. Again, I'll welcome back our city attorney, who also went through the death of his dad. So again, I don't take this for granted, and none of our council members take for granted that if someone loses a family member or a child that works for us, it's just as if we lost it. So again, please reach out to these people and express your condolences, because it's times during these times of loss that it makes all the difference in the world when people that got that time to come see you or talk to you. So with that being said, we don't have an executive session, correct?
No, we don't, Mayor.
Okay. Can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion is made, properly second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night.
That was good.
Have a great one, sir.
Yes, no, sir.
All right, thanks for everything.
Yes, sir.
All right,
No,
thank you.
thank you.